helpful advice that you might have received in the beginning of your professional journey?
Well, probably the biggest quote, I mean, I know that I've received a lot of helpful advice along the way. I know that from professors to mentors, I know that. Off the top of my head, it's really hard for me to think about that right now. But the biggest quote I can remember is all extremes are dysfunctional. So anything that, someone brings with them usually are not bad in and of itself, even if we're dealing with a couple coming in and they have a very traditional mindset where, woman stays home and cooks and takes care of the children and men go and do their outside job. A lot of times things are not bad in and of itself. It's when it becomes excessive or extreme in their thinking and they don't know how to manage it. And so like that particular example becomes where, the husband who's outside doing his job becomes very callous or cold or demanding or expecting, make sure that dinner is ready at 5 o'clock. How to find balance, how to just equilibrium in a relationship. So any mindset can be extreme. I've sadly worked with a lot of individuals and couples who start out with a Christian counselor and have been harmed by that because being very morally driven and come from a very judgmental aspect, non-validating aspect, and they've had to come, to me for healing of that, and so I've had to help them find balance in their spirituality and their relationship with God, and how, there are different people out there that also operate in extremes, and even counselors and even Christians, and how to find balance in that so they are healthy spiritually and what their relationship with God means and what that definition means to them. So
that's amazing and beautiful.
thanks.
I think that was probably a little bit more of what I was asking earlier, how it might play a role, and that's like a beautiful example. Your spirituality and your counseling. What does your continued education look like in LMFT?
Well, I have to have, with the state of Alabama, they relicense every 2 years. So in that 2 years time, I have to have at least 40 hours, and they break it down in the types. 6 hours has to be ethics, and then they break it down of what type of continuing education for the other. I was previously licensed in North Carolina. They relicense every year. It's the same amount of hours. It's 20 years a year, 3 hours of ethics per year, but they don't break down the other 17, specifics. It's just as long as it has to do with marriage and family therapy. So you have pretty freedom of choice of what you do with workshops and conferences and things like that. So
so you get hours if you go to a conference,
right,
and then you can like register for workshops, or
right.
How do you?
And there's online seminars and webinars, as well as out of town conferences with the state, local associations, national associations. There's so many things to choose from. It can be costly getting your continuing education, which is one of the reasons why I had to balance out paying for the clinical member dues, because you have to pay for your license renewal every year on top of the minimum of 20 hours of continuing education. So all of that to just maintain your licensure to be able to practice therapy can be extremely costly. So when you add on that clinical membership of joining an association, and you don't necessarily see significant benefits of it, you just have to prioritize where your funds go.
Okay. Thank you. can you see this field of therapy developing for the counselor and client in the future? Even now and into the future?
Well, what would you like to know about that?
Well, I am really interested in how pretty much our nation is embracing new ideas of what family look like. How that can change with the MFT. Yeah.
I think there are more educational workshops offered to learn changing times. So I think it goes beyond just, learning how to work with specific issues, and they also have added in just trends and things our society is facing, I guess you could say, as part of the workshop, and how to manage that, because it is ever changing. There was a time where traditional marriage looked like this, and who worked and who did what in that marriage, and then to, a large percentage of couples cohabitating and not, marrying legally, and so working with couples, and so not necessarily, because it's still called marriage and family,
Right.
But so many people that I work with are actually not legally married, So going from that to now, we have the same gender. So not only did it go from this traditional view of what a family looked like, we've got, went to cohabitating, people still sharing children together, but they're not legally married, or you have all these stepchildren involved, to, we have the same gender relationships, and adopting children.
Yeah, so in my mind, like, that is completely like one end of the spectrum to a whole nother endless end of the spectrum, because what I see is like family was this, and it is being almost completely
the definitions of
redefined to
exactly
in marriage, and so I'm wondering, like, how do you even maintain marriage and family?
Well, you just look at it from a systemic perspective. Like I said earlier, the being called a marriage and family therapist is kind of just maybe not the best or most accurate term anymore, because so many have different definitions of what that means, and then if they have different definitions, then they have certain expectations of what that means. So for instance, I have, people knowing my credentials, I have had couples ask, do you work with, not couples, I have had couples ask, do you work with us even though we're not married?
Yeah.
Or I have had individuals ask, do you still work with individuals even though I'm just coming by myself? So that's probably going to have to change at some point, the terminology, because that definition is, or at least in the strictest sense of the word, is going away, or people have different concepts of it. So so they're going to look at that.
Yeah. I know in our text it talks about it a little bit, and it says that organization is still not changing their name. They don't understand why, and they actually suggest to call it just couples and family counseling instead of marriage and family.
And the thing about it is, we work with individuals, so
I think
the bottom line is, like, we're systems therapists. We're systems therapists. We are trained in systems theory. That's the perspective that we operate from. It doesn't matter what their family definition is. Absolutely does not matter. It doesn't. you can marry a monkey later on in life. You know, it doesn't go in that direction. But you know what I'm saying? It's a matter of
Absolutely.
the system
Yeah.
and how we work with the system that they're a part of.
Personally, I think it shouldn't matter what it's called as long as you understand what the therapist is capable
Right.
of helping you with, which is everything under the sun whenever it comes to how your systems work. So it's a matter of opinion, I guess. Let me see. I have about 2 or 3 more. Forgive me, I'm just. Okay, this was a question directly from one of my group members. She says, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. While I am interested in MFT counseling, I recently watched a session on YouTube, and it was a bit emotional for me to watch because it hit close to home. Would you have any words of wisdom for someone like me?
Get counseling. Get counseling because you're going to be a counselor, and you need to know what it's like to be on the other side of the chair. So when you're in grad school, I think it's a good idea to seek out a therapist, even if you don't have any pertinent issues right now. Though obviously for her situation, just watching a video brought up stuff, so she needs an outlet to process it. Because I've been in the field for 22 years, and there are times that, I have to keep my stuff in check, because there does seem to be a theme, and I think there's actually a term for this, a clinical term for this. It's some weird clinical phenomenon. I can't think of the word, but there are times there will be themes of I'll be seeing individuals or couples that almost mirror what I'm also going through or recently going through or have knowledge of. And so I have to really make sure that I keep my own stuff in check. And if I need to get help, to process, then I need to be open to that. We are not, just because we're counselors, we're not immune to our own problems. And being in grad school is almost is very therapeutic as well, because all of this stuff is being talked about. So you're going to be more reflective, and your things are going to come to the surface that may have not otherwise been there. And so use that as an opportunity, because it will help you grow. It will help you grow emotionally and professionally, to go through therapy, to tackle your own issues. And then you'll be able to go in as a therapist and have that additional insight and intuitive ability and compassion and empathy in a way with your clients that maybe someone who didn't have those issues can do.
Thank you. Gosh, I don't know if I answered this one, but how do you keep up to date with ethical procedures, or remain competent in your?
You have to have at least the 3 hours of ethics training every year, and you just need to keep, stay connected. It's good to stay electronically connected to your different state licensures boards, organization, or Facebook pages, or things like that, where you can get notifications of any changes or anything that's been happening in the field. So